among the skepticism, Wilson, 1976, at an early stage, regarded overload. He'd call it a phantom. Tightline in 1999 argued at the point when the modern conception of overload was being established that overload was an evidence and a myth of modern culture. Does it sound familiar? Well, this is an extreme view. There is considerable evidence that many people are quite in trouble by the idea of overload. Rudd and Rudd in 1986 suggested that while there was confusion between potential overload due to the amount of available information, actual overload was rare, occurring only in unusual circumstances. On this video, we will continue talking about information overload. It is a topic that is evolving throughout the years, and on this center, it has increased so much the relativeness with our current technological advances and more. Information overload does not seem to exist for many people, since they tend to ignore what they do not need or that which is seen as irrelevant, seems avoiding or ignoring this excessive supply of information, or may adopt a highly selective approach and seek information that supports their customary decisions, choices, and practices. Nowadays, we only have feeds tailored for our own purposes, needs, hobbies. So, when is too much? When you literally have all you like and might like in just one page. When it is tailored for yourself, perhaps too much isn't too much on that particular scenario. And that could be one of the tricks that one does in social media or social networks. They need users to exist. So the best way to do it is to give you what you're looking for in the way that doesn't seem excessive for the viewer. And then the viewer can become a user. It happens when you buy something online. You might see a shirt, but the last week that you saw that shirt, it wasn't on the color that you liked. Now on this week, you saw that same shirt on the color that you liked. Now it is starting to look appealing for you. And you might become a customer next week. So you are no longer going to be a user after this week. Probably. Aren't we customers after all? When we say user, just by us downloading an app and signing up to a social media platform, aren't we just going through an unqualified lead and then qualify lead? Sometimes we are forgetting that social media platforms are also businesses. People are gaining money through us being online. And why are we perceiving social media platforms like that? Like an actual business, like actual, not only companies, like enterprises, people that Yes, they don't log in a factory, but they are logging in through a desk, through offices around the world, and we're just ignoring that they are enterprises, they are companies. Why are we forgetting that? And as long as we don't sign up to a social media platform, that just means that we haven't been qualified users. That means that we haven't been leads, qualified leads yet. So that's the trick, to give you a platform that doesn't feel like it is too much, because it's tailored to match things that you like and things you might like. So the subtle changes from video to video through enormous amount of information on just a single feed to put you one video next to the other in perfect squares. It's just a way for you to keep being an active lead to a company. So why does it feel different from being an active customer of a sports brand, for example, than to be an active user of a social media platform? Why it doesn't feel, that's the that's the point. Why it just feels different from one company to another? Is it because it gave us the sensation that we are controlling it? Is it because we are connected, therefore we are embodying per se? Or is it because we just have it in there to be online, to be on the lowest technology and social networks goes? But you do the same with the shirt. You buy the shirt because other people buy it. You buy the shirt because you want a different shirt than the other ones that you already have. Because people use shirts, right? So that's why you buy it. Do you need another one? Probably not. And if you do need, why specifically a shirt? When we're talking about information overload, that it doesn't seem to exist for many people, since they tend to ignore what they do not need, or that which is seen as irrelevant. Is it really relevant? Irrelevant for who, to start with? Simply avoiding or ignoring the excessive supply of information. So we tend to segment what we like, and therefore we avoid the main problem. Now there is too much information out there, and that the companies is pushing more and more information, and more than the amount that we can actually assimilate in the most responsible and non-damaging way. Others have noted, or it also has to be admitted, that there is an element of fashion, of being on trend, or well, how I mentioned it before, being on the loop. Sometimes we just want to be part of a group, be part of the wave, be part of something. But doesn't that speak more about ourselves than from the rest of the world? Or vice versa? Perhaps there's like enormous things that might be good to change in a society or a large community or group of people per se. Also, Others have tried to deny overload by saying that the problem is real, but due to other factors. One widely published example of this is the American writer Clay Shirky's dictum that it's not overload, it's filter failure. That's what he said. Since the problem is not the amount of information per se, but our inefficiency in dealing with it. However, it is perhaps more helpful to regard filter failure as an intrinsic part of the wider phenomena of overload. And this is a common way of dealing with things that, yes, we have been participating on actively and that caused a consequence, but also pointing out the problem on the user. Sorry, on the qualified late. And at this point is that yes, that is something we looked in it, but that is also something that another person, another entity, another comparison also intended to. So when that happens, is it entirely the user's fault for this to be happening? Is it our fault to apply filters? Or is it also the fault of the people who are behind it in general? Both parts. And why do we talk about those parts? Aren't we part of the same? When you divide the two of them, it leads to also be like polarizing things. Like they're the bad guys, we're the good guys, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. Just like, no, we are behaving in a way that other people can read it faster than us sometimes. It's not the fault for us to behave in a certain way, but it isn't also our fault for us to pay the consequences of the people that are thinking faster than us, or reading our own behaviors faster and doing something with it for their advantage based on their what they read about us and our behaviors as a society. So it is a conjunction work if you think in that way. It is in terms of if we didn't add it in a specific way, if we didn't process the things in a specific way, this wouldn't be happening. But also other people wouldn't be taking advantage of that, and some big corporation wouldn't be existing nowadays. So marketing, it is also about, or it is also based on reading people's behaviors in order to point out what could be the most trendy, or the thing is going to be selling the most, or the thing that is going to capture an attention the most, in order to use that for a specific purpose. Is it our fault as a user, or sorry, unqualified list, or is the people that is marketing the stuff, is it their fault? But we couldn't exist or do our place or play our parts without the other. Because if one of them is gone, then the point that is correlating the both of them wouldn't be existent. In the context of big data, the information philosopher Luciano Floridi remarks that big data refers to an overwhelming sense that we have bitten off more than we can chew. that we are being force fed like is that our intellectual levers are exploding. But rather, Florida goes on to argue we should regard ourselves as seated at a banquet where there is more food than we could ever eat. Why should we have cause for complaint? There is no easy technological solution. We must instead think hard about issues of the purposes for which the data is created and for which it will be used. And on that basis, focus information quality. Can we talk about information quality on this century? Is it existent? And if it is existent nowadays, we also need to think in the enormous amount of doses that is existing nowadays. Similarly, Capurro in 2013-2014 regards overload as a paradoxical condition, since information to hand is also the product of some selection process, guided by what an individual perceives they need. And basically, they just launching that information to the world, thinking that, hey, if I require this information, if I found this information useful, someone will find it useful as well, right? The paradox for Capurro lies in the great number of options provided by available information, and hence for the need to choose the criteria for selection. We are segmenting ourselves. And even in that segmentation, how much information we cannot even choose. Spire in 2016 expresses this paradox more generally. If we live in an information society whose main feature is, by definition, a growing informatization, how can such society suffer from overmuch information? One answer to this paradox may another the paradox of choice, as enunciated by American psychologist Barry Schwartz in 2004. Put simply, while having little choice in some matter may be the problem, having too much choice may be equally or even worse problematic. Too wide a choice may cause anxiety and lead to a paralysis of decision making, and too irrational decisions very much the features and information contents of overload. And indeed, studies of online shopping behavior have shown that an increased choice of brand alternative causes feelings of overload among shoppers and related. So, for example, when everything is massive, when something because over is causing an overproduction of something, we're talking about monopolies. And brands are covering a specific good in a pretty wide area or range or amount. We think that is too much. The options are offering, the spaces they're covering online and not online services. We seek for that option that is out of that box. What we might perceive is that other people are thinking the same, that we cannot be part of this. We cannot let this monopoly to cover all of this. We need to push our own product. And then the other person is, we need to push our own product. We need to push our own thing, our own service, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, we have an enormous amount of possibilities and options in a scenario that were supposed to be alternative. But now they're covering another big part of the market from that or that vulnerability is actually covered, putting more to the problem that actually just pulling out some of it. So now they're being part of the problem too. A closely related viewpoint is that overload, assuming that it exists, is not really caused by too much information, since there is never a necessity for anyone to absorb all relevant information. Rather, it is caused by filter failure and inability, which may be due to a variety of causes. To identify from the mass of available information what is useful to us to any particular time. For clear identification of this, it's in the context of health information. And you also might agree on that. So we have this paradox. It's because we lack filter. Is it because we are segmenting a lot, or is it because other people are taking advantage of them? If only information, we literally don't have the natural cognitive capacity to filter too much. On the previous video, we put out the example of from medical professional for a specific area after feel for them to be up to date. On a recent year, they had to just read for 10 years what was out there. And then after those 10 years, perhaps he will be not up to date with the other 10 years of papers and researches that went out back then on the time he was reading all the stuff to be up to date 10 years ago. So, are we the problem? Are we not the problem? And when I say like, are we? Let's not divide both sides. Remember, one needs to the other. So, we're just the same people. So, just others read us faster how we behave than others sometimes. And I'm going to pause this in here because I think this needs another part for sure. So, what do you think about this topic so far? Let me know. Thank you for being here.